Salty Strong. The whole Cajun story. Hidden deep in the swamps of Louisiana roamed a mystical Cajun boy. The mysterious boy dwelled secretly in the caves of an ancient salt dome. He was curiously slight, a few shades too white, and made purely from the salt of the earth. The divine boy called himself Salty. Salty loved running through the salt dome's tunnels with the critters of the caverns. He rooted with raccoons, rummaged with rats, and bunked with bats. And he always reminded them in a whisper.
I must beware of the salt miners. They'll grind me to grits and bottle me up like Cajun seasoning.
The burly salt miners worked day and night with heavy hammers and pickaxes. They shattered the dome's rocks, bottled the valuable salt granules, and sold them in faraway lands. When the coast was clear, Salty left the caves and searched the swampy shores, finding treasures left by fishermen. He loved his oversized white shrimping boots, which kept his tiny briny toes nice and dry.
These big boots were worn by a good old Salt, a strong fisherman who fed his catches to hungry folks. These are some big boots to fill. Ain't that something?
One afternoon, the salt miners filled their bellies with red beans and rice. After their big lunch, the tired miners took a long nap. Salty snuck past them and went fishing in his homemade pea rogue. He paddled past lurking gators to hook a trout, grab a crab, and scoop up a few muddy crawfish. On his way back, Salty gathered firewood and then crept quietly back into the dome. He used castaway kettles to cook his Cajun cuisine in the cavern. Boiled crawfish was his favorite feast. Salty was gritty and very witty. He taught himself to jazz up each dish with just a tip of his salted cap. He poured himself into each culinary creation.
A tip of my cap adds tasty salt to this and that.
As savory wisps of smoke flowed through the caverns, the critters came calling and crawling in. While Salty chewed, he shared tasty morsels with the dome's hungry critters. This made his tiny toes tingle.
Ain't that something?
As his fire dwindled, Salty spotted a single shiny star and asked,
Will I ever meet a spicy friend like me?
Then he nestled into the damp walls of salt and conked out cold. That night, Salty awoke to hammers pounding and rocks splitting. The dome shook as stones crashed around him. He wriggled to escape, but the weight held him fast. In seconds, the miners crushed Salty into gritty granules, poured him into a shaker, and tossed him on a truck. He searched the sky for the single shiny star.
Please care for the critters.
As the truck rumbled through the fog, all Salty could see were the deep tracks left behind. Saline droplets filled Salty's eyes. He was crushed. For weeks in his lonely shaker, Salty traveled the seas on the deck of an old battered cargo ship. The clattering sound of salt shakers chimed long and loud.
This clinking noise would drive a cave bat batty.
Each time the ship docked, Salty heard new languages, saw bright flags, and people of all kinds. Then the engines roared, horns scattered the gulls, and the ship drifted back to sea for days. On the 40th night of the journey, Salty peered through his shaker's tiny holes and spotted the single shiny star.
My toes never even tingle anymore. Please bring me back whole and strong.
At daybreak, the ship docked in festive New Orleans. Salty was awakened, swiftly secured with ropes, and hoisted over the bustling deck and docks into the lively French Quarter Market. The market buzzed with friendly folks and fabulous food. Tables overflowed with spices garlic hung above, and jazz clubs and famous eateries lined every corner.
I'm luckier than a three-clawed crab. Ain't that something?
But Salty's luck didn't last long. A grumpy chef named Burns bought his shaker and hauled him to a dreary cafe.
Grits.
Chef Burns had saucer-sized nostrils and a fiery temper. His nose hairs smoked as he barked,
Y'all are slow-eating slugs.
Then he placed Salty onto a dingy table beside a glass pepper grinder. The cranky chef's overcooked, foul-smelling food was bland to boot, but Salty was wary and kept his salty goodness to himself. Every time someone tried to use his shaker, he clammed up and clogged the holes.
I ain't coming out.
The few patrons who entered the restaurant found the food as distasteful as the decor. On a sluggish evening, a dapper gentleman looked at his plate of steamy goose gizzards, puckered his face, pushed his plate aside, and dashed without even dining. The boiling chef threw a fit. He slammed his knuckles on Salty's tablecloth, making the table wobble. Just then, a faint, muffled sound came from the glass pepper grinder beside Salty. Curious as a possum sniffing seafood, Salty whispered,
Who dat? Is anybody in there?
My name is Pep.
Shh. Hey, I'm Salty. How'd you get in there?
I was born in an Indian black pepper field and cracked into a petty pile of peppercorns. I'm so scared that I can't flavor food.
When the cafe closed, a fluttering street lamp dimly lit their table.
Back home in the dome, I used to add salt to any meal with a tip of my hat.
In my homeland, I produced fine ground pepper with the blink of an eye.
Ain't that something?
Soon the street lamp's flame lost out to the rising sun. They couldn't keep their feelings bottled up any longer.
This food would make a gator gag.
Chef Burns prepares his food in the same manner he spells his name.
Then let's spice things up and please all the chef's customers and give these hungry folks all we've got.
Yay! You share the salt and I'll pepper them up.
The spicy duo poured themselves into each dish.
A tip of my hat adds tasty salt to this and that.
With a blink of my eyes, I shall give the food a peppery surprise.
Ain't that something?
Together, they jazzed up the chef's weird specials like squid kabibbles and possum potluck, turning them into delicious delicacies. Chef Burns counted his cash, but not his blessing. He picked on his waiter like a crusty crab on a limp shrimp.
Once they pay, send them on their way.
Meanwhile, Salty and Pep had more of their spicy spirit to share, and they kept pouring it on. The cheerful customers of the bustling restaurant were always shaking Salty, grinding Pep's grinder, smacking their bottoms, and even dropping them in spicy gumbo.
This joint is jamming like our jambalaya. Ain't that something?
You crack me up further.
However, each evening, Salty's fine granules and Pep's black peppercorns dwindled away into their culinary creations. Salty's shaker was down to the nitty-gritty, and Pep was only a few grinds away from having her nose powdered. They knew they must escape soon or be gobbled up as part of someone's main course.
No matter what, we'll go out together.
You're a good salt, Salty.
Just then, as the cafe's patrons dined, Chef Burns rushed outside shouting,
A brutal hurricane is brewing. Y'all are on yound.
The startled customers dispersed, leaving Salty and Pep alone. Peering through his lid, Salty spotted a single star through the storm.
Please help us stand strong through the hurricane.
As the massive storm rolled in, the chandeliers began to swing. Salty was as anxious as a shrimp at a gumbo cook-off.
Stay strong, Pep. I'll never let anything hurt you.
Just at that moment, lightning cracked, thunder roared, and a howling gust of wind and rain peeled back the shingled roof. The Spicy Friends table was toppled, and they took a terrible spill. As Salty's and Pep's glass containers crashed to the floor, they exploded into a billowing halo of salt and pepper. Briefly, the hurricane hushed, and all was silent. And like butterflies busted out of cocoons, Salty and Pep stood strong and whole. Salty gazed upward through the large hole in the cafe's roof. In a moment, not even a hurricane could blow, Salty spotted 1,000 shiny stars. With his eyes as wide as oyster shells, Salty exclaimed,
Holy grits, he made us whole again.
His rubber shrimping boots fit snugger than ever before, and his fully grown toes were tingling and tingling. Pep looked precious as she straightened her silky sari.
I've stopped sneezing. Ain't that something?